Hello, disc golfers. This is Matt Dollar, and you are watching my first round from the 2016 Savannah Open. Playing the black tees. Blow that horn, dude. Alright, our first hole today will be hole 4, and it is a par 5. Now, it's also a par 5 from the gold tees, which is much harder. The par 5 from the black tees, which we're playing today, is kind of a tweener. That's a pretty good rip with the gold line stiletto. Uh, Pretty much exactly where you want to be off the tee on this hole. You got to watch out to the lake on the left, and the path on the right is OB, and beyond it. So it's not just the road, it's also the path. Basically, at this point, I should totally be laying up and playing safe. That was my game plan, just play safe, but they were in such a good spot, I decided to grip the stiletto again, and that's never coming back in time. It's really, really wet on the course out there, and footing is tough to come by, and that will be a recurring theme during today's round. This is pretty much where I went out of bounds, probably about 300 feet short of the basket. Now I'm throwing a Opto Spark. Comes in just right at the basket. The basket sits inside of this bowl, and yet it's elevated on the railroad ties as you see there. So from a distance it looks like it's on level ground, but it turns out it's not. That's my soft spike going in there to save par, even with the OB stroke, so even par after one. Moving on to hole 5, which is quite slippery, probably the slipperiest tee on the entire course. They did allow us to tee off from the sides of the tee if we need to for safety reasons, but that's also pretty wet ground, so I elected on this one to try and tee from the side. Didn't really get my foot rotated and shoinked it straight in the woods. Not exactly what you're looking for there. It's a little tough to see my angle to the basket from here, but it's not a good one, so I'm really trying to get it out there and not throw it in the road. Instead, I just throw it right into the branch in front of me. Not exactly position A. Now I'm looking at probably a 4 or 5, unless I come up with something really good here. I was trying to throw a mace out of there right then. Not a happy camper climbing into those bushes. There's also quite a lot of water on the course, as this course does not drain that well, and inside those woods is a fair bit of water. So right here you're going to see my first ever forehand roller since the plastic switch, and that is my go-to disc, the Opto Spark. Gets me out there for a decent little putt. Once again, putting with the soft spike. And a bogey. So 1 over through 2. Not feeling real great about that start. And another weird rotation on my plant foot when trying to throw that drive and shoinked it into the woods, but it kind of kicked out. So I've only got about 300 feet left of the basket, but again, wet, funny footing on a little bit of a side hill. I'm going to try to throw a triple X up there, thumber style. Got good distance on this one, just pushed a little right at the end and rolled a little bit down that hill. This is a really cool hole. Behind the basket is a sharp drop off, and everything is just covered in mud right now, so it's hard to get footing, and there I go, down the hill. You know, when you start to slip, you don't want to try and catch yourself because that's when you really get hurt, so I just went with it and slid down the hill and ran off into the road. Looked a little silly, but I didn't hurt myself. So now I got to come back up here and, yep, watch out, don't fall again. Try and find a little bit of footing and make this uphill putt with basically no push off. If you watch, I really do not get much of a kick on this with my back foot, which is what I need. Tickled a little chains there, but on down the other side of the hill. And this is not looking good. Luckily, I put it in there. Saves the par, but still one over par after 3 holes. So this here is hole 6B. It is an added hole that they put in every year for the Savannah Open, usually just for the second round, but this year in every round. I'm throwing a judge off the tee. Hit a pretty good line off the tee, but not good enough because I smacked that tree. And now I'm looking at about 50 or 60 feet for birdie, probably 50 feet, I'd say. The one area of my game I feel really confident in is the putt. And this transition to Latitude 64 plastic has been really easy in putting because I really love my new putter. Once again, just tickled the right side chains, didn't quite get it in there. Just gonna tap it in for another par. And we're gonna move on. If you can read there, you will see that I got a par and I am still 1 over after 4 holes. So this hole here, hole 7, really cool right turning par 4. I'm gonna try a triple X thumber roller. And I found a tiny tree. That tiny tree right in front of me there is the one that I hit with the roller. And trying to do something crazy here with a spark, trying to get that ante and let it float over to the right. Not working out so good. I threw it basically right into the jungle. I remember this lie was not good at all. Had 2 options. I could pitch back out to the middle and pretty much accept my 5, which would be a bogey. Or I can try to poke something through these woods. I'm looking right now, the pink disc is a hatchet, and I was thinking about tomahawking it. There's not much of a line, so I opt for the thumber right through the tiny gap, and somehow I got over there to the basket. That was maybe my best save of the day. Really fortunate to get out of there with a par after those first 2 shots. But still over par after 5 holes. And last on the tee box, as you hear right here. Do you want to go? Well,
yeah. So everybody are throwing?
Yeah.
All right.
So this hole probably has the tightest gap on the black tees. Initially, my game plan was to throw a thumber and be safe and just play for a 3, but I decided to get aggressive, and I'm throwing the hatchet up the middle. Now, I pured the line, but just did not throw it high enough, which is basically no reward for hitting that tight gap. If you're going to take the tight gap, you might as well give yourself a chance for the reward by at least throwing it high enough to get there. So another long putt here. Got it on a good line, just didn't quite have the height. You can see the frustration is setting in at this point. Still over par after 6 holes, and also still searching for my first birdie of the round. Another par 4. On this one, you're teeing off from a carpet tee that's seen better days. This hole is all about the drive. It's tough, it's tight, and you got to go really far and straight. But if you get all the way down there, it's a pretty easy birdie, and that is the best drive I've ever thrown on this hole. I was throwing the gold line flow off the tee there, and that disc bombs and it goes straight. Probably my new favorite high-speed driver. So I got far enough down here that I actually threw past the end of the fairway, the landing zone. But I'm in a pretty good spot, and I'm able to just do a nice long jump putt out of there right up to the basket. One of the great things about my new putter, the soft spike, is that unlike the Rhino that I used to putt with, the soft spike has some glide. Alright, back to even par through 7. I was a little too quick on the tee there, and I hear that complaint from a lot of cameramen in our sport of disc golf. I tend to be very fast once I step on the tee, and Carla was not quite able to get the video rolling for that one. Here's my upshot on this par 4. Thought it was pretty good. Hit that tree after the skip and rolled back out. This is a really tight line I'm about to take here. I should probably just pitch up around, but instead I'm going to try to put it right through those trees and make it, which is a tall order for even the best of putters. And that's why you should just pitch around, because I putted it right into that tree. But that's okay. I'm still only about 20-something feet from the basket. Able to tap it in here.
Good catch. Absolutely.
As Ryan Watson commented there, it was a little bit right, and it was a good catch on the basket. Even par after 8 holes. Alright, coming up here, we got a par 3. It's only about 260 feet. Really just want to poke something real straight. And more footwork issues and combine it with the grip lock. And I threw the verdict right into the trees. I love that mid-range, the verdict, but that was not the best throw with it. Now I've got my judge in my hand. Just a little lazy, didn't quite get turned over on it and threw it into another tree. Now I'm looking at about 70 feet to the basket on my third shot on what should be a relatively easy par 3. Really need to make this one and hang in there. Unfortunately, I was not able to, and I'm looking at another bogey. Tap it in there with the spike, and back to over par through 9 holes. Here we have a really tough par 3. In fact, until this round here, I'd never seen anyone to it. I'm just trying to play safe here with a little skip thumber. Unfortunately, after the skip, it caught a tree. Just had a little too much pan on that one. And here we go again, just trying to chip another little slow panning thumber up shot. And just like the shot before, I caught just a little too much pan, but still worked out. Finished a little left of the basket. Not too bad though, going to give me about a 15, 20, probably a 20 footer to save my par. Just scraping along in this round basically. 1 over par through 10 holes, heading into a tough par 4. But one of my favorite par 4s on the course. In fact, these next 2 holes back to back are great par 4s. And for the 3rd time in a row, I throw a thumber that just has a little too much pan. Still lands on his back and gets the nice skip around the corner though. Just a little too far. This hole does a complete dogleg right off the tee once you pass that last tree on the right. And then you have to go down through this gap that you're looking at now and go back to the left. It's a really cool double turning hole. Another thing you have to worry about on this shot here is if you throw it and hit that gap and go too far straight, there's a path out there just past those bushes that is also out of bounds. I didn't like the footing there, so I opted away from the backhand justice and decided just to tomahawk the hatchet up there in the middle, give myself a long look for birdie. God knows I need a birdie at this point. Unfortunately, I'm not going to find it here. But pars are good, or at least on this hole. We got another par 4 coming up here next, where you have to cross the water on your tee shot and then hit a little gap over on the left, and then you got to throw back around to the right. It's a tough one. Smashing the gold line flow off the tee here, and this is also one of the best drives I've ever had on this hole. Put me in perfect position. Gonna chip a little thumber up shot here. Land right at the base of the basket and skip away just a little bit. A little Mario sound effect there is a celebration. And somehow I am even par after 12 holes. This is probably one of the signature holes at Tom Triplett Park here in Savannah. It's the train tracks hole. It's right beside the railroad tracks, and It's super tight. I'm trying to throw a thumber over that tree, the bent tree in the middle. Never tried it before, but why not? And that's why not. So I'm basically kicked over into Deathville, USA. Best choice is really just to pitch back to the fairway and then pitch up and take a bogey. But instead, I'm going to throw a triple X forehand roller down the road, curve back in, give me a putt, and got a cut through. Quick draw on that putt. Carla didn't quite catch it. Here we are on hole 16. I'm throwing a Gold Line St. Pro on an Annie. Man, it holds that Anheuser really nice. It didn't throw it really hard, but just gave it a good angle. Floats up there about 350 to give me about a 20-foot putt for the birdie, which I could really use after that bogey. And can it in, the roller coaster continues. Just up and down, but whenever you get a bogey, it's always good to bounce right back with a birdie. So I am even par after 14 holes. Here we are on hole 17. It's about 400 feet, and you are teeing off from out of bounds, so you have to cross that road, and if you want to take a direct line to the basket, you have to carry over the out of bounds pretty much the entire way. I chose to throw a Lucid Escape here, and it was a pretty good shot, just hyzed it out a little bit at the end. Gives me a long look at the birdie. Seems like I've had a lot of these today from about this range. Got a lot of chains, but just a little left. Not quite going to stay in there for the birdie, but another par it is, and at least that's better than a bogey. So I'm even par through 15 holes, and we're going to roll into hole 18 here. It's kind of a straight shot with a little hyzer finish. And just forgot to put the right angle on that. A little frustrated with myself, as you can see. But best thing you can do is laugh it off. Take a little backdoor chip thumber, slow panner, try to land it right up there by the basket, and at least get out of here with a par. So after the par on hole 18, we move on to hole 18B, which is the 20th hole if you're counting 1 through 20 instead of 6B and 18B. I was quick on the draw here again. Carla missed it, but it's a thumber that lands right at the base of the basket. Here I am just dropping it in there for the birdie. Much needed birdie. Get that mud off the spark there. And 1 under par through 17 holes. All we have left is hole 1, 2, and 3. Hole 1, the traditional line is straight ahead off the tee with a little Annie finish, but instead I like to throw out that gap on the right there. It's a really small gap to hit, but if you hit the gap with something fast and overstable like the stiletto that I did there, you can skip it off the road and get back to the basket. I think it's about 330 feet maybe. And it's a scary tee shot to execute, but I hit it just right and got the birdie. Which puts me 2 under par through 18 holes. Got 2 holes left. Here we are at hole 2, which is a really tough one. Really tough par 3. Kind of have to throw it straight through that gap in the middle and then go left. And that's about as good as you're going to hit it right there. I threw the Gold Line Flow, and unfortunately, because of all the rain that the course got the day before, my reward for the great tee shot is throwing from a little lake in the middle of the fairway. But that's why we wear waterproof shoes, so I'm just going to walk in there and give it my best shot. It's not worth sacrificing the extra footage away from the basket to take it back, even though it is casual water and you can get relief. I love the way that soft spike just floats and glides. Doesn't quite have the hyzer finish at the end like the putter I'm used to, but not a big deal. I'm making the adjustment really good on that one, and pretty soon I think I'll be nailing all those long putts. or at least hopefully. So last hole here is probably the shortest hole in the course. And I threw a tomahawk with the hatchet and hit that little tree in the middle that I was kind of aiming at. It's always nice to get a birdie on this one, but it's a tough hole even though it's really short. Don't really like either of my lines here, so I'm just going to take a little hyzer putt approach and just get out of there with a par. Once I tap this one in here, it'll be a 2-under finish with a score of 66. Thanks for sticking with it in that rough round, and we'll be back with round 2 where we play the short tees. I'd like to give a huge thanks to Carla Seward for videoing this round, and also thanks to Latitude 64 for their support. Thanks everyone for watching. Where I play the short tees and kill it.